Good morning. My name is Cristal Ogletree. I am the Director of Enrollment Management here at Lick-Wilmerding High School. On behalf of the faculty and staff, our students and families, welcome to Lick-Wilmerding's very first virtual open house. Thank you for joining us today to learn more about our school community. Before getting started, I want to take a moment to acknowledge that this year has been and will continue to be a challenging one for all of us. We are dealing with pain and hardship. We are facing racial injustice and systemic oppression, deadly natural disasters, and a global health threat. All of this in addition to personal challenges. Our school community is made up of people from diverse backgrounds, and we're also living through these things together. We hope today you'll have an opportunity to see how we're responding and how some of our school values are reflected in being resilient and still finding hope and joy during these difficult times. We're trying to be a place where students, families, and our faculty and staff can feel connected and where we can see and support each other. This first virtual open house is the introduction to a multi-event open house, broken up into 5 sections over the next couple of months. We hope that by deconstructing a 3.5-hour in-person event into multiple shorter virtual events, that we can help reduce screen fatigue just a little bit for everyone. While there will be no question and answer time at this event, please feel free to email our office at admissions@lwhs.org with any questions. Our admissions team is here to help you through the process, and please know that at all future admissions events, you will have the chance to submit questions ahead of time, and there will be designated time set aside during the events for questions as well. This event is being recorded, and the recording will be shared in the coming weeks. Today, we are diving into 3 facets of our community that are at the heart of what sets us apart: our school mission, the Center for Civic Engagement, which drives all of our public purpose work, and the Technical Arts Department, also known as the SHOPS program, which is one of the defining aspects of Lick's academic curriculum. I'll also be sharing some of the philosophy behind the admissions process. The 4 of us who you will be hearing from today have collectively been a part of the Lick-Wilmerding High School community for over 50 years. This is a place that has clearly been a meaningful part of all of our lives, a place that we've committed our time and talents towards, and a place where we come to inspire and be inspired by our colleagues and students. Eric Temple is Lick's 12th head of school in our 125-year history. He began his career in education teaching high school English and has served as a dean of students, dean of studies, assistant head of school, and as head of school of a kindergarten through 5th grade school before joining the Lick community. He has served on many school boards, as well as the boards of the California Association of Independent Schools and the National Association of Independent Schools. He is the inspired leader of our mission-driven school and truly embraces Lick's history and commitment to academic excellence, diversity, and inclusion. Please take it away, Mr. Temple.
Thanks so much, Cristal. Thank you. Hi, everyone. It's great to see you, although I don't really see you, but I see you. 8th graders, how are you doing? Are you hanging in there? I'm sure you're really excited to spend yet more time on Zoom on a Saturday, but we really appreciate you being here. I'm going to share my screen. I have a little slide presentation for everyone. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our mission. And it's really an amazing mission. We are very much a mission-driven school. And I'm going to start by just reading our mission. So we are a private school with public purpose. Lick-Wilmerding High School develops the head, heart, and hands of highly motivated students from all walks of life, inspiring them to become lifelong learners who contribute to the world with confidence and compassion. So what does this mission mean? We're going to start with what is a private school with public purpose. At Lick-Wilmerding, the skills and the things that you learn here are very much going to impact the way you live your life. We believe in educating for impact, so that what you learn, you carry with you into the world to try to really influence the way this society is being formed. You have a 4-year public purpose program at Lick-Wilmerding, and you'll learn more about that. And please also visit our website. There's a lot of information. You'll also learn today from Ms. Godinez Jackson about the Center for Civic Engagement, where service and leadership and our nonprofit partnerships reside. We at Lick-Wilmerding believe in a holistic approach to student life and development. And the motto we use is head, heart, and hands, meaning we want the whole student to be well cared for and to nurture all parts of who we are. The head, and truthfully, before I break them into 3 sections, they do work in concert with one another. So the head, we like to talk about the academics. It's a very challenging and rewarding academic experience, but you will work hard at Lick-Wilmerding High School. Your courses will be tied to real-world problems, and we have so many really complex problems that require us to dig in deeply to try to solve them. We have a wide variety of classes, incredible choices, everything from specialized seminars in English and history to a wide variety of art classes, technical art classes, performing art classes, just a great group of classes to choose from. It's pretty exciting. We don't have AP classes at Lick-Wilmerding, and instead we have honors classes. Nothing really wrong with APs, except that they do stress breadth of understanding, where we believe depth of understanding is really more useful for students and more in line with their interests. So for an example, we have a marine ecology class where you're just learning about marine life and the ecosystems of the oceans. We have a genetics course, and various science classes versus having an AP bio class or something like that. The heart at Lick, we talk about public purpose and the care that we have for the world, but it really is also about how we treat each other. How do we care for one another and lift each other up and not try to break each other down? So the heart is really about care. It's about love. It's about how we really take care of one another. We have restorative practices when there is community harm, meaning that we ask people who do harm to think through, how can I repair that? How can I sit down with the person I may have harmed and really repair that and create a restorative practice to what we all need is to be able to listen to one another. At Lick, we are practitioners in our continual quest to create a more equitable and compassionate society. And never before have we needed that more than right now. The hands at Lick you'll learn more about as well, particularly our tech arts program, but all over the school. You'll see people doing. Even now that we're online, it's amazing all the kits and all the art supplies and tech art supplies that are being sent home. We sent sewing machines home with kids just so that they can really start to use their hands, get off the computer. Our body mind education, we sent yoga mats and yoga blocks and all kinds of equipment home. Get off the computer, stretch, just do with your body and your hands. I do love this part of the school. In particular, think about making something that never existed before. It's just so exciting, right? So you iterate and you draw and then you start building and all of a sudden you have an object that never was in the world and that you made. It's really just so fun. We learn by doing, and when you graduate Lick-Wilmerding, you actually get a toolkit. And I love the metaphor of the toolkit. Well, one is, we want you to go out into the world with the tools that you need to fix the world, literally and figuratively. I will say that our graduates report back that the toolkit has made them very popular on their college floors because they're the ones that everybody goes to hang pictures and do work on the floor. And so they have instant friends. So it's really useful. I remember talking with an alum from about 55 years ago, And he told me, he said, you know, look, I met my life partner because I knew how to fix things. So at Lick, this hands part is really a lifelong skill that you'll just take with you everywhere you go. And literally, we want our graduates to fix what is broken. So we have students from all over the Bay Area. As you can see here, just so many middle schools are represented, all different types of schools, and importantly, a very diverse community, purposely diverse. And that is just very exciting to learn from people who are different from you. And yet, it's also challenging. We're constantly challenged by other people's perspectives. We have to listen. We have to understand that we all come from different backgrounds and we all have different ways of expressing ourselves. We also know that right now our American society needs careful looking at around its systemic racism that is a part of our history, and we have to dismantle it, and we have to be honest with one another and have conversations with one another that allow us to create some restorative care and justice in our communities. And Lick is not immune from having to have these conversations. We do believe that diverse classrooms are the most powerful places for people to learn. They set us up for the complex and diverse society that we're all entering into after high school. We have 5 habits of mind at Lick-Wilmerding. They are imagine, inquire, collaborate, persist, and reflect. And I love these 5 habits of mind. A habit of mind is a meta skill. It's a big skill that we believe if you know how to do these 5 things, you can solve almost any problem that comes your way in life. It's a wonderful process, actually. If you think about a really intractable problem, you have to imagine what the solutions are. You have to ask a lot of questions. You need to pull your team together. Who do you need in order to solve this problem? Hard problems take persistence. They don't come easy. The answers don't come easy. And then you have to reflect, what could we have done better? What could we do differently? And that takes you right back to imagine. So it's a wonderful cycle of problem solving. And we believe strongly that these 5 habits of mind will help our students as they enter the world. A Lick-Wilmerding graduate is compassionate and confident and curious. I have so many great stories about our alum. But my greatest hope for our students is that they graduate feeling comfortable in their own skin and really proud of who they are. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Eric. Next up, we have the Director of the Center for Civic Engagement, Christy Godinez Jackson. Christy has been at Lick for over 15 years and has held many positions. She started in the admissions office, then transitioned to leading student inclusion and leadership programs, and now serves as the Director of the Center for Civic Engagement for the past 8 years. She has also served on the Northern California Board of POSIS, People of Color in Independent Schools. She is a San Francisco native and has been a board member for local youth and neighborhood organizations, including Youth Art Exchange, the Ocean Avenue Association, and the Balboa Reservoir Community Advisory Committee. She is committed to serving her community, and we are so fortunate to have her in our school community and here with us today.
Thank you, Cristal, for that introduction. I'm going to start with sharing my screen. All right. I'm excited to be here with you this morning to give you a glimpse of the programs that we run in the Center for Civic Engagement. As a private school with a public purpose, it is our responsibility to instill in our young people the value of giving back to one's community and doing our part to make this world a better place. I'll start with highlighting the public purpose program. This program started when we started to address a real concern that we were seeing, and that students were not making time to give back to their community. Being a college preparatory school, one can often get bogged down with the academics and forget about the larger world that needs you. And so this has been a staple to our program and something we're incredibly excited to share with you. So the public purpose program has a graduation requirement. All 9th graders attend a workshop series throughout the year where they explore privilege, the roots of inequality, and ultimately do a service project as a class together. As sophomores, students are required to complete over 40 hours of service. 10 of those hours can be in service to the school, but the remaining hours have to be in service to a nonprofit. And students choose a variety of ways to complete this. Some students do multiple projects and others will stick with one organization for their full 40 hours. And then finally, 11th and 12th graders have a variety of options. They can enroll in an academic class that has a service learning component. They can design a community-based independent study, work as an intern, or design and facilitate the public purpose Frosh curriculum. Some examples of public purpose classes are our calculus PPP course that is year-long. And this is one of my favorites because it's thinking about how you can use math and apply it to real life. This class every year holds a maker fair with West Portal, and they have their students doing experiments, making math fun, science, all of those different pieces in the PPP class. And then to your right is the Philanthropy Initiative course, which I co-teach with our Public Purpose Director, Alan Wesson. In this class, we teach people why give and how to give responsibly. They act as a board, ultimately deciding on what cause they care about, learning how to write a request for proposal, and ultimately granting $10,000 to a nonprofit of their choice. Last year, they granted that $10,000 to the organization Trees for the Future, choosing climate change as their greatest concern. We host various projects, service projects throughout the year, in particular for our sophomores who are looking to complete those 40 hours. During the school days, we have public purpose programming where school ends academic classes at 12 p.m. and for the rest of the afternoon, students can engage in optional projects. You have students working in the neighborhood through cleanup, but also one of our center interns, Max, who has a mask on, who during the quarantine decided to organize some of his own projects and work with the food bank, was able to raise over $3,000 for that community and volunteered regularly during that time. In addition, all of our student council and AM clubs live in the center. Many of us like to think of the center as a hub for student life, and that is what we are. But we want to make sure that we instill in our student leaders the value of giving back as well. So student council is required to plan regular service projects throughout the year. They also do a huge offering during MLK Day of Service. And all of our AM clubs, which stand for active membership, those are clubs that have requirements such as meeting once a rotation, offering a community gathering for folks, and then ultimately doing a service project. And this is really, really important for us to continue to remind our students the value of giving back to the larger community. Here are some examples of our public partnerships that Eric spoke about. This is something that I'm incredibly proud of, to say that we have wonderful relationships with so many nonprofit and neighborhood associations around our corridor. Some that I will highlight is the Balboa Reservoir CAC, Ocean Avenue Association, and the Excelsior Collaborative, which I'm all heavily involved with and serve on the board or committee. TaxAid, which is a nonprofit that offers free tax services to families whose income is below $55,000, have been partnering with us for the past few years to offer their services here at Lick-Wilmerding. One thing that we do besides sharing our space free of charge to organizations that are our educational organizations or nonprofit is that we also look for ways to deepen those partnerships. We don't want to just be that school that opens a space and doesn't think about how our students we want our students to work with those communities, have events together. And some examples of those events are the Ocean Avenue Block Party, which is a neighborhood celebration that we do along Ocean Avenue. We also help co-sponsor the Youth Art Summit that will be taking place virtually this December. And this past spring, we hosted our first San Francisco Youth Justice Comic Con, which was a wonderful event, a partnership with the San Francisco Unified School District to really bring comics to life and give young people an opportunity to think about social justice in that work. Our LWHS community tutoring program launched several years ago when one of our nonprofit partners reached out to us because they were discontinuing their tutoring program. And they asked us, can you start something? And of course, we decided to take on that challenge. And here we are 7 years later with a thriving program that serves 5th through 8th grade middle school students from public and parochial schools. There's enrichment classes, which you see a photo here of 2 of our students, Ollie and Keaton, who offer a coding course. They were able to get funding through Tutor Corps, and obviously the school funds the program as well. And what's so exciting about having these 2 launch this enrichment program is that Ollie launched it as a sophomore. He was looking for a creative way to do and complete his 40 hours of service that would feel meaningful. And then he asked his Peer Connect mentee, Keaton, to join him along in that process. And this October, we will be launching a virtual tutoring program, which we're excited to welcome back all of our tutees. The Excelsior Art in Action, similarly, is a free program that serves 5th through 8th grade students that reside in the Excelsior district. As a San Francisco native who grew up in the Excelsior district, this program is near and dear to my heart. There are so many students in the summer who are not able to attend any type of summer programming just for the sheer cost of what that looks like. And so this program has 2 goals. One, to offer and provide program for underserved youth in the Excelsior district and to prepare young LWHS alumni for careers in the arts. So all of our teachers in Excelsior Art in Action are LWHS alum, which has been an incredibly rewarding experience to watch them come back and teach in the shops, photography, drawing and painting, and so on. And now I'm going to highlight a few leadership opportunities that live in the center. One being the student leadership trainings that we do throughout the year. We kicked off this fall with our student leadership training for affinity club leaders, active membership, student council, and Peer Connect. And in the spring, we host a training with Skillify to get students to start thinking about resume writing, interviewing, networking. And ultimately, we are hoping to launch a 3rd official leadership training program that teaches students real life skills. We're hearing more and more that our students want to learn how to change a tire. They want to learn how to do their taxes, how to balance checkbooks. And so those trainings happen, but we want to make sure that they happen in a much larger way so more students can attend to those. And then there's our Peer Connect Mentor Program, which I highlighted earlier with Ollie and Keaton. And this is an opportunity, optional, for 9th graders to be matched up with an LWH student to serve as their mentor throughout the year. Although it's optional, we have over 95% of 9th graders that enroll every year, and we're still going on in a virtual world. You'll see this photo to my right where we had our first event a few weeks ago, and we asked our mentors to have one-on-one Zoom sessions with their mentees. And if they had the session, we then entered them in a raffle where they received prizes. And in the upcoming weeks, we will be hosting a series of virtual Peer Connect events, from baking, escape rooms, to renting a movie and enjoying some snacks on us. And then there are leadership conferences, which several schools send students to, and we are also highly committed to making sure that we have representation at the NAIS Student Diversity Leadership Conference, the White Privilege Conference, and Creating Change Conference. Students who attend these conferences are then required the following year to help us plan our own in-house conference, which is the Sam Lahara Days of Justice, named after Sam Lahara, an alum who graduated from Lick in 1951, who has devoted his life to sharing his experience in the Japanese internment camps and bringing awareness to injustices that have happened in our world. And really the overarching goal of these days is to remind students how they can be agents of change. And it's filled with affinity groups, workshops, keynote speakers, and so much more taking place in the spring. And lastly, the PACT Mentor Program. Some of you may be familiar with this program. We launched it when one of our partner schools approached us about a concern they were having with the experience of young students of color in independent schools. They reached out to us, asked us if we were interested, and we jumped on because we do think it's important for young students to have mirrors and see themselves in our older students and learn about the experience of students of color in private schools. And so this partnership started with San Francisco Day School in Lick-Wilmerding, and we now have 5 schools joining us. And my last slide is just to highlight our team. The Center for Civic Engagement consists of 4 members, myself as the director of the center, Alan Wesson Suarez, who oversees our public purpose program, Naomi Fierro, who's our director of student inclusion, and Yanni Velasquez, who's an alum of Lick, as the center associate. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eric and Christy. So next up, you're going to be hearing from Andrew Kleindolph. Mr. Kleindolph has been at Lick for over 15 years, and he's the chair of the Technical Arts Department. He developed the Lick-Wilmerding Electronics and Circuits program and helped the department integrate various digital fabrication processes. He was also one of the leaders of Lick's Senegal service learning trip for 7 years. When not teaching, he maintains an active art and design practice. Mr. Kleindolph is a beloved teacher and colleague, and I'll pass it off to him now to share more about our innovative technical arts program.
Hello, everybody. First of all, just thank you for taking the time to view this presentation and just consider our school. I'm obviously biased, but I think you're going to love it. And I'm going to specifically tell you about this technical arts program that we have. And it is, as Eric said, it's one of the defining elements of the school. And I think to understand why that is, I'd like to start with this image from the archives of Lick. This is actually from about 1910. This is the plumbing shop. And so Lick started as a trade school, and at the time it was boys only, and it was tuition free. But people were going straight into the trades, and so Lick really sort of focused on that. And I think understanding that history, it helps you to understand how has Lick invested in this program over time, and also that this is not a trend for us. This is not like suddenly joining on a maker movement, that we've actually been making things for a long time, and it's really in the essence of the school. And obviously we've changed a lot. Right? And we're constantly changing. We're incorporating what we see as the latest and greatest tools and techniques and ways of thinking about building and designing things. We bring in we've incorporated all kinds of modern digital fabrication, from CNC routing to milling to circuit board design, laser cutting, 3D printing. To sort of understand the overall picture of our program, I would describe it, we describe it as a junction between design, engineering, and craft, and that those are in service of finding connection, community, building community, and finding purpose. To be a little more specific, from a design standpoint, what we're teaching students is to consider form, function, and experience, right? Both how something looks, how it works, and then how people are going to feel about it, right? And sometimes experience also is just an event or an interface or something like that. From an engineering standpoint, we're trying to take things that students are already learning, things in math and science, or really any of their classes, and give them a space to make them as tangible as possible in a way that maybe isn't possible, right, in another class, right? Like certainly there are project-based there's project-based learning across the school, but I think in the shops we're able to take it to a level and depth that maybe other classes cannot. But we do just a lot of collaboration across the school to try to figure out how to do that. From a craft perspective, we're asking students to think beyond sort of instant gratification and understand that putting time into something and building patience, persistence, craftsmanship, and care is going to allow you to do things that you simply can't do through sort of quick processes. And so, oftentimes, especially coming out of middle school, students are used to things that, maybe getting an assignment is due the next day. Maybe you have a week to work on something, but some of the things we work on can take months, right? A whole semester sometimes. And you have to learn a lot of things along the way. You have to perfect them. And we really focus on those with the students. It's all about process. I think Eric mentioned this, like for us, it's about planning, it's about prototyping, it's about iteration, right? Starting with drawings, building cardboard models. You have to learn the skills to get to the end. So you're skill building along the way. You're getting feedback from your peers, and you're refining, sometimes rebuilding things. And if you really put the time in, you can end up with something really unique and amazing in the end. So for example, this speaker that Rafa made, which is, you know, like a high-tech version of Africa, and it has like an interactive light display on it. For the connections we hope that students are making, oftentimes they come through in very visual ways. So here you can see this project by Isaac. So this is a turning project, a very traditional craft, but then the idea was to put some kind of an image in the turned object. So in order to do that, you know, this wood starts just as a stack of wood. And then how do you get an image to come out of that? So you have to be able to saw down the wood at very specific angles and put it together and glue it up in the correct way. And so this really became a geometry project. And I think, you know, it challenged him in a way that like even his geometry class didn't quite become as tangible as this, until he could see that like, I cannot get these shapes unless I can figure out that relationship between the angle of the saw and how the wood is gonna then sit against a following piece of wood. All these projects are built on collaboration. That doesn't mean that every project is a collaborative project, but getting to the end result of every project is a collaborative process. So that's going to mean that you're going to have to get feedback from peers. You're going to have to give feedback from peers. You're going to have to rely on your peers to further your skills, right? We don't teach as though the teacher is the sole provider of information, right? The students know a lot. We had a huge range of students with different skills, and we try to build those up and share them as much as possible, right? And many projects are explicitly collaborative. You cannot get to the end result without working with someone. And we sort of build that in. We talked with students about the reality that it's like so many of the things that we appreciate and use every day simply could not be possible without collaboration. Right? I think some of us are taught to sort of worship a single person, right? That this amazing person invented this thing, but we know that behind the scenes, it's always many people working together that come up with these things. And certainly people working in design and engineering today know that you simply can't build anything without like having a good team and a lot of different skills coming together. When we build our curriculum, we think of it as very responsive. We're constantly asking our students for feedback. We're looking at what their interests are. We're looking at what things that are resonating with them and maybe what things aren't. And so we're constantly trying to revise our projects and our curriculum to appeal to diverse interests and identifiers, right? And so we're just really rethinking our projects, our ways of working, our ways of delivering information all the time. But we are a no experience required shop. So I would tell you that 80% or more of the students that come in really have no experience. You know, we will get students that have some coding experience, or maybe they've worked in a wood shop before, but in general, like we get very few students who have done the vast majority of what we have to offer. And so we want students to know that, like, I'm showing you a lot of amazing work, but a lot of this is made by students that come in that really had no experience, and they really learned what they needed to get to the end result. And that's important for us. We're really about inspiring students to figure out what are the things they didn't know they could do, and they become passionate about, and that you gain confidence through these different processes that you maybe haven't tried before. We have a pretty wide variety of courses. As a 9th grader, we require every student to take our design and technology course. And that introduces you to a range of things. First of all, design thinking, the idea that when you're going to design something, that you don't just think it up and go make it, that there's a whole process, starting with deciding who it's going to be for, defining the problem, ideating through many solutions, prototyping, testing, and then refining. We teach design drawing, right? How do you quickly get your ideas on the paper, right? And this comes back to the power of the hand, right? It's very tempting to go to the computer and model things out, and many students want to do that, but there's nothing more powerful than being able to quickly sketch something and show someone what your idea is. And so we start there with students, And then we move into the digital modeling so that we can sort of bring together this idea of precision and accurately representing something and putting a little more time into your idea. The project that students do, the first kind of beginning to end project, is a lamp. And this really is about working with many kinds of materials, going through an entire design process, and really project management. How do we work over this over a series of months. You work with multiple instructors and you have a specific amount of materials you're working with. So it has to have a metal element, it has to have a wood element, it has to have an acrylic element, and it has to have a programmable light up circuit. And so these are just some solutions that students have come up with in the past few years. And so the amazing thing about this project is everyone starts with the same limitations, but the end result are vastly different. And there's just so much personality that comes out of each one. And then that project really is everyone making their own thing. So we do also do some collaborative things with students, including this community build project where they build something for the campus. And so that comes out in all different kinds of ways because we get these projects from our local community, and then we ask the students to work directly with adults, so they become sort of a client designer situation. And so they, like we have this prize wheel that was for the development office. We've got these picnic tables that they're outside the shops now. We got this game for the chemistry class, and then at the very bottom on the right, this was students working on a binary clock that I actually am a little frustrated by because I always look at it and I can't tell what time it is, but the physics teacher loved it. And this is one of my favorites, quite funny. So the genetics class does this project where they're hatching flies, fruit flies, and you have to, apparently if you want to get the most fruitful batch of fruit flies, you've got to get them just to the right temperature. So this was a fruit fly hotel, and so some students worked on this for the genetics class, and I guess the fruit flies are just loving it. Now, once you finish your 9th grade class, you have to take 2 more shops before you graduate. Many students take more, but you've got to take at least 2. And so we have what we call the wearables program. One of the classes in that is our jewelry classes. And so students work with super fine application of cutting and filing of metals, things like copper, brass, nickel, silver, stone setting, working with resins, working with enamels, just creating different wearable items, sometimes found objects, bringing their own personality into each of these projects. Sometimes there's machining involved. This ring was made on a small milling machine, and then the student soldered it and formed it and put a finish on it. And then these are some acrylic rings. I think they were laser cut and then hand finished afterwards. We do a lot of digital fabrication things, but we also love to bring in craft in the hand into almost all of it. We also have a fabrication with fabrics class where students learn how to work with textiles, think about sizing, think about pattern and color. There's some issues that students will talk about, like fast fashion and how that's impacting the environment. The student designed the top that he's wearing as well as the hat. Our woodworking program is one of our most popular, I think, just because it's such a beautiful material to work with, and we have such great woodworking instructors with so much experience. And so students will learn about all the different kinds of woods, how to join them, how to put finishes on them, where do the woods come from, what are some of the most sustainable woods, right? What are all the different kinds of tools we can manipulate the woods with. There's a lot of furniture building that will come out of that class. Sometimes we get some students that are just really in love with the wood shop. And so this student, Andrew, made a guitar completely from scratch. I mean, he made every part of it. He did the pick guard, he ordered the electronics, wired it up. I mean, it was really quite an involved project, and he spent almost a whole year on it. And he was like, I actually was a little worried. He was like, I'm not worried about my other classes. I've just got to finish this guitar. But it shows the passion that sort of arises from some of this stuff in the students. These are a few projects just from last year. Just thought the beautiful combinations of wood, some turned projects at the top. And then in the middle one is actually just for hanging earrings, but I just found the design so innovative and so interesting. And, I just have to give the students so much credit for coming up with great things. And then our shops teachers for like helping them, you know, make them reality. We do some coding in a class called graphics and game design. And so that class starts with thinking about two-dimensional design and how do you create some graphics that would then be used on a textile. So we're kind of, students will study the history of textile design, they'll pick a movement, and then they'll use that as the basis for their own design. They print out samples, make sure they're happy with it. And then they get a few yards of fabric that they've designed all through code. And then they have to use that as something. So here we got a pillowcase on the right, or Jeffrey here made a blanket for a nephew's baby, and he sent us this picture. It's just so adorable. Then they do a game design project. So this is an interactive web-based game using JavaScript and p5.js. And so they get to choose a theme. They work with a partner, sometimes two partners, and they have to create interactivity, some kind of a theme to the game. Sometimes they hand draw the graphics and scan them in. And so you get funny games like, you know, the corgi who's trying to catch a deer, or like stop Mickey from stealing your Mickey D's. Well, the computing program also does some public purpose work. So there's been some collaboration with some local schools where they just teach kids coding. And again, we start kind of very analog way, like talking about structures, how the coding works, and then moving on to getting the kids on screen with some Scratch programming. We have, in our metal shop, we do a lot of furniture design. And so we have, in our metal shop, we've got some welding, a lot of cold metal forming, plasma cutting, things like that. But it's really focused on design, not just tools. And so students do learn to use a lot of tools. It's quite exciting, but also just really emphasizing design, project management, getting from beginning to end, getting feedback along the way. Here's a table that comes apart and folds up, or sorry, a chair that folds up. Here's a drum stool. Here's earlier in the presentation, I showed the digital version. Here's the real version on the right of that chair. And this was an exhibit we did in the front of the school last year in the fall. Here's a couple chairs made by a student a few years back, but I just love this quote he sent to us that he said, you know, he went to Brown and he was like, honestly, the teachers at Lick know me and my design problems so much more than even my college professors do. And I think that made us feel good in that we feel like we get so much face time with them and we really get to know them and how they work. And I felt like this student is saying that, yes, that's true. I teach the circuits and electronics, and in there we learn about all the electronic components. We learn about building things that are both analog, things that are programmable and digital, how to design circuit boards, how does electricity work. The most popular project, I simply can't get away from it because students love it so much, is building amplified speakers. So we've been doing that project for a while. Some examples of the amplified speakers. And so students build all of it from beginning to end. In a class I teach called Device Invention, we've been doing some data reactive projects. So they're projects that use sensors and collect data, and maybe that data becomes visualized, or maybe there's some real world interactivity that comes from that data. Here's a couple examples of that. So you've got this one on the top, it's reacting to tide data and it's pumping water back and forth between these two glasses. And the one to the right of that says fajita burger. This is it uses a recipe API on the internet. And so you hit the button and you can get inspiration each day of what you should cook that night. And it will give you the URL of that recipe. On the bottom here, we've got a chicken tracker. So it keeps track of when it uses RFID. So the chickens have a little something on their leg. And so it'll track when the chickens leave the coop. And so at the end of the night, you can figure out, it'll send you a text message for which chickens haven't returned. And so you can make sure they get in, don't get eaten. And then finally, there's a Muni tracker, just letting you know how many minutes before your Muni arrives. We do also do some work with sort of mechanical engineering and robotics. And so that's manifested itself in different ways. Here are a few kinetic projects students have made using gears and cams. And we've done some robotics things. It sort of depends on the interest at the time. We did have a first robotics for a little bit. We've done some stuff with some, this has a LiDAR sensor on it, so it will map its environment and you can do some kind of autonomous maze solving. One of our newer classes is called From Algorithm to Object. And so this class, it uses visual programming so students can create things that you simply can't create by hand. And so here you can see using 3D modeling in this visual programming language, we're able to make shapes that simply, again, cannot be made by hand. And then we print them remotely so we can do things out of metal and different kinds of materials, sandstone here in the middle. The last program I want to highlight is our public purpose. So this really ties into what Christy was talking about. So we do a class called Private Skills Public Purpose, and it's very much in concert with the center. And so we reach out to some different local organizations, and then we make the students do 100% of the communication. The students build things for these organizations. And so they're often schools or local community organizations. And here are just a few things: these planters, lots of furniture, signage. And we've taken this even internationally. We've had a Senegal trip. I was part of it for a long time. And you know, students take some of those skills, and we built playgrounds. We've worked on schools. We built desks for schools. This is a solar installation that we did for a hospital. And then you're probably wondering, like, wait, what are you doing during the pandemic? Well, so we think, you know, we see design thinking as like, you work with what your limitations are and you make it happen. And so we've done that. And so one of the things I think Eric mentioned is we've been sending things home with students. So we sent sewing machines home with them. I sent a whole load of electronics home with them, soldering irons and things like that. And I'm still doing the amplifier project remotely. We're doing the enclosure completely laser cut, and we're doing that with manufacturing remotely. We're still doing a circuit board. We're designing it and having it remotely manufactured, sending all the things to the students, and they're still gonna have to construct it. And so I'm quite actually happy with how it's going so far, and the students are giving me really good feedback. So I think they're actually learning a lot of things that we wouldn't actually have been able to learn in the shops. I think there's a lot of, I feel like this in a way has been an opportunity for us, and there's some things that we're gonna carry forward even after we return. And then also the other cool thing, and this is the last thing I'll talk about here, is you know, our students being on Zoom, it's allowed us to connect with alums and just have them in for super quick visits. Like, it's low stakes, you don't have to travel. And so I had Ora Oppenheimer come in, class of 2014, and she's working at Carbon, which is a local 3D printing manufacturer. They make 3D printers, really high-end ones. And so she's showing us how, you know, Adidas is using their machine to make soles now for this very specific shoe. And so she's a systems integration engineer, sort of just working between mechanical, electrical, and software. And then I had Andrew Rausch come in from 2013, and he's working for Intuitive, which is a company that makes laparoscopic surgical robots. And so he showed us this video that went viral that they did where this robot was peeling back a grape, and you can do it all remotely. And so they're the #1 laparoscopic surgical robots. And he did a live demo where he was showing us how they use electricity to cauterize the cuts immediately in a very localized way when they cut into someone. And he did it live with a pickle, and it was quite amazing. And again, I don't think we would have done this if we wouldn't have been on Zoom. So yeah, just ending with a quote from a student. I think this really sums up what our students get out of this, which is that tech arts means everything in my high school experience. It strengthens my problem solving skills, my perseverance, my precision, and my craftsmanship, all skills that I take with me and use in my other classes. The technical arts program at Lick truly pushes me to think deeply about how my actions can be used to contribute to the world with confidence and compassion. That came from Elliot Rosenberg, who just graduated in 2019. So that's all I've got for you. Thanks again for considering our school, and I'm going to hand it back to Cristal.
Thank you so much, Eric, Christy, and Andrew, for sharing some of the ways that our mission is an everyday part of life at Lick. I'd like to close our program today by sharing what we look for in students, some of the philosophy behind the admissions process at Lick, as well as some information about our admissions process this year. One of the questions we get asked most often in the admissions office is, what does Lick look for in a student? There isn't an easy answer to this question. If you ask each of our speakers today and each member of the admissions team, we might have slightly different answers. This is part of the process though. We can have different answers, but at the core, we all agree on what matters most. In response to this question of what we look for in our students, some of the things that I've seen in my time here are students who are humble, empathetic, kind, and compassionate, They love to learn, and they are eager to drive positive social change. We surveyed our teachers last year, and in their words, a Lick-Wilmerding student is creative, engaged, motivated, and curious about the people and the world around them. We are looking for students who like to try new things, who want to get out of their comfort zones to learn with people who are different from them. We are also a community in constant flux, composed of and in need of individuals who work hard every day to make sure that this is a place where we can all thrive and evolve. So, as an admissions office, how do we find students who will help us in our journey to be this kind of community? It requires us to have a holistic approach, and it requires us to have inclusive practices, and it requires a diverse group of team members and community members. So what it means for our office to have a holistic approach is to start by understanding that all of your children have rich and complicated lives, and that it is our job to try to explore in as many different ways as we can all the ways that your child might thrive at Lick. We do this by not only looking at your child as a student, but also a community member, an artist, an athlete, a risk taker, a learner, all the ways that they might enrich our community. We are very intentional in crafting a class that not only has the academic potential to thrive at Lick, but that is also balanced in all forms of diversity, including gender, socioeconomic class, race, ethnicity, geography, and co-curricular interests. Our goal is to enroll a class that reflects the demographics of the greater San Francisco Bay Area and balances personalities, interests, strengths, and opportunities for growth. To do this, our admissions committee takes into consideration every piece of the student application, including the personal essays, the student's transcript and recommendations, their interview, and each applicant's affinity for our school mission and educational philosophy. In addition to having a holistic approach, we also need to have inclusive practices built in throughout our admissions and enrollment processes. Some of these practices include the school's commitment to ensuring that the Lick experience is financially accessible to students from all walks of life. Lick-Wilmerding is able to give flexible tuition grants totaling nearly $7 million a year to do this. Another way is by being test optional in our admissions process. Being test optional means that standardized test scores are not required to apply, though applicants may still choose to submit them. Test scores have always only been one part of our holistic application review. They provide one opportunity to present a student's academic potential, but this potential is also represented in other parts of their application. We won't make any assumptions as to why some students choose to submit a test score and some don't, and applicants who don't submit test scores will not be disadvantaged in any way in our admissions process. Other ways that inclusive practices are built into our process are staggering event registration dates so that families coming to the process later in the fall will still be able to register and attend. We're recording all of our open houses and Life at LWHS panels and making them available online to be more accessible for our prospective families who we know all have busy lives. We have student ambassadors from all over the Bay Area and from different types of schools and backgrounds. We also think very carefully about the application itself and the questions we ask. We have common long-form student application essays with other Bay Area independent high schools to try to help ease the writing process a little bit for our applicants. We also try to remove barriers from applying by having a Spanish language application process available on Ravenna. The third and very important way that we craft a class is by including the voices of a diverse group of team members and community members. Each year, we have 30 to 40 faculty and staff members who participate in our interview and application evaluation processes. As the people who are working every day with our students, we deeply value hearing the voices and perspectives from a large group of our community members. Next, I'd like to share some of the ways you can get to know our community in the coming months. Most events are open to parents and students, though we do have virtual campus tours that are led by our current students and that are geared toward prospective students only. And then we also have parent panels that are just for the parents. You can find descriptions of all these different events, different types of events on Ravenna. Additionally, like Eric recommended, explore our website. So the admissions pages have a lot of information. There's the virtual tour there, everything about the application process, the flexible tuition program, but the rest of the school website has a lot of information as well. You can read about our strategic plan, which was approved earlier this year, and it outlines our community goals for the next 5 years. You can learn more about our curriculum and course offerings, browse the course catalog and descriptions and syllabi. You can learn more about the ways we build community, our advising and counseling programs, our athletics program. So I highly encourage you to explore our whole school website. Next, I just want to share some of the faces that you might be seeing as you get to know our school community over the next few months. These are our LYs, which stands for Lick-Wilmerding Admissions Interns. This program started 6 years ago with 2 students who came to us wanting to be more involved in sharing our community with prospective families. It's grown over the years to a group of 13 this year. These are our Tiger Ambassadors. We knew that this year it might be difficult to feel connected and to feel like prospective students and parents are able to have meaningful interactions with someone at the high schools they're applying to. We created this program in an effort to provide a cohort of students who want to connect with you, who want to share their stories and their perspectives. They want to support you in this unusual year. So these are the 2 groups of students who you'll be interacting with during our virtual events this fall, and also through our Connect with the Tiger Ambassador program. The Connect with the Tiger Ambassador program is a way for students and parents to make one-to-one connections with each other, and we'll be launching that in the next couple of weeks. Next, this is our admissions team. From left to right, there's Elizabeth Tackett, Min Yu, myself, Jewel Sparks, and Andrew Manansala. Elizabeth, Jewel, and Andrew are all Lick-Wilmerding alumni, and all 5 of us have short bios on our school website on the admissions contact us page that include how we've been involved during our time at Lick, as well as what we love about working here. The weekly admissions office hours are a good way to get to know us a little bit more. In closing, I want to remind everyone of 2 things. The first is that it's going to be okay. None of us were planning for a virtual admissions process this year, but our commitment to sharing our community with you and to getting to know your students has not changed. We will have many opportunities to do that in the coming months. The second thing is that there are so many great schools in the Bay Area, and we encourage you to explore your options. Over the past several years, we've received approximately 7 applications for each available spot in a class. Unfortunately, we're not able to offer a spot to every student who we would like to see at Lick-Wilmerding High School. I highly encourage you to apply to multiple schools to give your family options for next year. I hope all of this has helped shed some light on our application process. Please reach out to us over the coming months. We're here to support your family through this process. I think I can speak for my team when I say that we absolutely love talking about our community. We hope that you can see why, whether it's through an event, a video, or an interaction with a community member. We hope that you get a sense of our warm and welcoming community, even if it's through a screen. We're excited to learn more about you through the application process and to have you join us as we continue to be a community that is driven and defined by our mission, by public purpose, and by a commitment to making the world a better place. So on behalf of all of us here today and the rest of the admissions team, thank you so much for your time. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.